There's a plant sitting in a garden center right now. Green, healthy, beautifully labeled. And it is one of the biggest mistakes you could bring home. Not because it's ugly, not because it won't grow, but because it will grow too well. It will spread where you didn't plan for it. It will come back year after year, stronger each time. And within 3 to 5 seasons, you'll be spending your weekends trying to get rid of it instead of enjoying it. I know this because I've planted almost all of them. After 40 years of gardening, through beautiful successes and some very expensive lessons, I've learned that the most regretted plants are never the ones that fail. They're the ones that take over. And here's the part that most gardeners don't realize until it's too late. The warning signs are almost always right there on the label. Words like naturalizing, fast spreading, vigorous, and low maintenance. Those aren't always promises. Sometimes they're quiet warnings. If you've ever planted something that looked perfect in year 1 and became a problem by year 3, this video is for you. And if you haven't yet, pay close attention, because this could save you years of frustration. Here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to walk you through 11 perennials that I, and thousands of gardeners just like you, have come to deeply regret planting. Not because they're bad plants on their own, but because they behave in ways that most garden centers will never tell you about. For each one, I'll show you exactly what it does, why it becomes a problem, and what you can do instead, whether that's a better alternative, a containment strategy, or just knowing when not to plant it at all. By the time this video is done, you're going to have something most gardeners spend years learning the hard way. A clear picture of what your garden will look like not just this season, but 5 years from now. That's the difference between a garden that's exhausting and one that's effortless. You're not going to need to be an expert. You don't need special tools or a big budget. You just need to know what to look for before you buy. And that's exactly what I'm here to help you with. So let's get into it. If you've ever stood in your garden wondering how something that looked so lovely in the catalog turned into this, you are not alone. It happens to almost every gardener. You read the description, it sounds perfect. Hardy perennial, spreads naturally, great ground cover. So you plant it, you water it, and you step back feeling good. Then year 2 comes. It's a little bigger than expected. Year 3, it's in the path, in the lawn, under the fence, coming up between the stones. By the time most people realize what's happening, the plant has already established deep roots, literally. And removing it is a project that can take multiple seasons. The problem isn't that gardeners make bad choices. It's that the information they're given focuses on how a plant looks at the point of sale, not how it behaves over a decade. That's what this channel, The Root Garden, is all about. Smart planting, long-term thinking, gardens that work for you, not against you. Whether you've been gardening for 2 months or 20 years, the advice here is designed to make your garden easier and more enjoyable, not harder. Now, before we get into the full list, I want to plant a seed, no pun intended. One of the plants on this list is almost certainly sitting in your garden right now, or maybe in your neighbor's garden, creeping quietly toward yours under the soil where you can't see it. It's a plant that most people consider completely harmless. In fact, it's one of the most popular beginner plants sold every single spring. You might even have one on your kitchen windowsill. But in the ground, given space and time, it becomes one of the most difficult plants to fully remove. It spreads underground through rhizomes, and even a tiny piece of root left behind will start the whole process over again. I'll tell you exactly what it is and what to do about it. But I want you to have that in the back of your mind as we go through the rest of this list. Stay with me. It's coming. Raise your hand if you've ever planted mint, thinking it would stay neatly in one little corner of your garden. The plant, mint, spearmint, peppermint, apple mint, it doesn't really matter which variety. They all share one very aggressive trait. What it does. Mint spreads by underground runners called rhizomes. These run just beneath the soil surface in every direction, sending up new shoots constantly. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't stay inside the lines. Why it's a problem? Within a single season, a small mint plant can colonize several square feet. Within 2 or 3 years, it can take over an entire raised bed, crowd out neighboring plants, and even push through cracks in pavement. The visual. Imagine planting one mint plant next to your tomatoes in spring. By fall, it's weaving between every stem. By the following spring, it's in your lawn. The fix, always, grow mint in containers. A buried pot with the bottom cut out can work as containment. But even then, check it regularly. Mint is a wonderful herb, just never let it touch open soil without boundaries. Here's one that was sold to me as the perfect solution for difficult shady spots. 40 years later, I'm still dealing with it in one corner of my yard. The plant, bishop's weed, also called goutweed. The variegated version, green and white, looks beautiful in catalogs. What it does, it spreads aggressively underground, forming a dense mat that smothers everything beneath it, including established plants. It tolerates shade, poor soil, drought, and neglect. That sounds wonderful until you realize it also tolerates every attempt to remove it. Why it becomes a nightmare. Even tiny root fragments left in the soil will regrow. You can dig, pull, and smother it with landscape fabric for an entire season, and it will come back. Many experienced gardeners consider it one of the most difficult plants to fully eradicate. Simple action: do not plant this. If it's already in your garden, smother it with cardboard and thick mulch for at least 2 full seasons, and check religiously for regrowth. If you want a shade ground cover, look at native alternatives like wild ginger or sweet woodruff in controlled amounts. This one looks like something from a dream garden. It is one of the most regretted plants I have ever seen in person. The plant, trumpet vine, stunning, orange or red flowers that attract hummingbirds all summer long. Sounds perfect, right? What it does, trumpet vine spreads by underground runners, aerial rootlets that cling to and damage surfaces, and aggressive self-seeding. It can lift fences, pry apart siding, and damage mortar in brick walls. It doesn't just climb, it grips, and it does not let go. Why it works against you. Hummingbirds love it. But so does it love your structures. Once established, trumpet vine is extremely difficult to control. Cutting it back just encourages more vigorous growth. The roots can go several feet deep. Visual. Picture a charming garden wall covered in rich orange blooms. Beautiful. Now picture that same wall 2 years later with cracks running through the mortar, where the roots wedge their way in. The fix: if you want the hummingbirds, consider a coral honeysuckle vine as an alternative, equally attractive, far less aggressive. If you must have trumpet vine, grow it in a very isolated location and cut it back hard every year. We're just getting started, and I promise, the ones coming up are just as surprising. If you're watching this and thinking, oh no, I have that one in my garden now, don't panic. We're going to talk about what to do in each case. You're not alone. And most of these situations are manageable if you catch them early enough. Coming up, we've got a popular ornamental grass, a beautiful wildflower that turns into a weed, and one that most people would never expect to see on this list. It's actually considered a native plant by many. But without the right conditions, it becomes a spreading nightmare. Keep watching. You're going to want to hear this one. This plant is in a category of its own. If you have it, you already know. If you don't, this is your warning. The plant Japanese knotweed. It was imported as an ornamental plant in the 1800s. It is now considered one of the most invasive plants in North America and Europe. What it does, it grows up to 10 feet tall. Its roots can go 10 feet deep and spread 20 feet in every direction. It can push through asphalt, concrete foundations, and drainage systems. It regrows from the smallest root fragment. Why it's catastrophic. In some countries, having knotweed on your property affects your ability to sell your home. Removal can take 5 to 10 years of consistent effort. It is not a plant to underestimate. Action step: if you have knotweed, do not compost it. Even dead canes can reroot. Contact your local extension office for a management plan. This one requires serious, sustained effort. Here's one that gardeners have loved for generations because it truly is gorgeous. The problem is it's too gorgeous for nature. The plant, purple leucostrife. Tall spikes of vivid purple-pink flowers that bloom in summer. Butterflies love it. It photographs beautifully. Why it's a problem: in moist or wet areas, purple leucostrife spreads so aggressively that it displaces native wetland plants, destroys habitat for birds and insects, and can take over entire waterways. A single plant can produce up to 2.7 million seeds per year. Important note: purple leucostrife is actually banned or restricted in many U.S. states and Canadian provinces. Check your local regulations before planting, or better yet, skip it entirely. Alternative: try native Joe Pye weed or native swamp milkweed if you want tall, pollinator-friendly color near moist areas. Let me stop here and talk about the most common mistake. I see, and it applies to nearly every plant on this list: buying more than one. When a plant looks beautiful at the garden center, the natural instinct is to grab several. I'll plant 3 along the fence, maybe 4 by the path. And for well-behaved plants, that's completely fine. But with spreading perennials, Planting 3 instead of 1 doesn't give you a slightly bigger display. It accelerates the timeline dramatically. 3 mint plants become a full bed invasion in a single season. 3 goutweed plants become an impossible to remove mat within 2 years. The rule I follow now, with any fast-spreading perennial, plant 1. Observe it for a full season. Watch how it behaves in your specific soil and conditions. Some plants spread aggressively in moist, rich soil but behave themselves in drier, poorer conditions. 1 plant gives you information, 3 plants give you a problem. And always, check with your local cooperative, extension service, or native plant society before introducing something new. They know your region. They know what spreads and what doesn't. That 5-minute call or email has saved me from more mistakes than I can count. The plant, ribbon grass, green and white striped leaves, graceful movement in the breeze. It's sold everywhere and looks elegant in photos. The reality. Underground runners spread rapidly in every direction. It can cross the garden in a single season and is notoriously difficult to remove once established. Like many ornamental grasses, it looks best in isolation, but it refuses to stay that way. Fix, grow it in containers, or choose a non-spreading ornamental grass like blue oat grass or Karl Forster feather reed grass as substitutes. The name is almost a joke. Obedient plant. It is one of the least obedient plants in the garden. The plant, Physostegia. It produces lovely tubular flowers in pink or white in late summer, a genuinely attractive plant that pollinators love. The problem, it spreads aggressively by underground rhizomes and self-seeds freely. By year 2 or 3, what you planted as an accent has become a solid mass, crowding out everything it was meant to complement. Fix, choose the cultivar, Miss Manners. It was specifically bred to be clump-forming and non-spreading. It gives you all the beauty with far less battle. The plant, Yellow Archangel. Sold as a shade-tolerant ground cover with silvery, decorative foliage and small yellow flowers. The reality. In the right conditions, shade, moisture, woodland edges, this plant can spread 10 to 20 feet in a season by trailing stems that root wherever they touch the ground. Why it matters. It's now considered invasive in several parts of the Pacific Northwest and other temperate regions. It escapes gardens easily and can spread into natural areas where it smothers native understory plants. Alternative for shady ground cover, try native wild ginger, Asarum canadense, or creeping phlox in sunnier spots. Both are well-behaved and beautiful. Few plants are more visually striking than this one, and few plants will make you regret it more by year 3. The plant, Houtinia cordata chameleon. The leaves are a mosaic of red, green, and cream, genuinely stunning. It's moisture-loving and often sold as an ornamental for pond edges. The problem, the rhizomes spread aggressively in moist soil, and even in dry soil it can be persistent. The roots go deep, they break easily when dug, and every fragment regrows. Experienced gardeners describe removing it as a multi-year project. Fix. If you love the look, grow it in a submerged container in a water feature. That is the only reliable way to contain it. The plant, Lily of the Valley. Few plants are as cherished. Those tiny white bells, that iconic fragrance. It's been in gardens for centuries and in bridal bouquets for generations. The reality, in shade and moderate moisture, Lily of the Valley spreads underground by rhizomes and can form dense colonies that crowd out every other plant. Once established, it's very difficult to remove. The nuance. In dry shade, one of the most difficult gardening situations, Lily of the Valley is actually a reasonable solution precisely because its spreading behavior fills a space. Nothing else will. The mistake is planting it where other plants are expected to thrive alongside it. Fix, give it its own dedicated space, preferably a contained bed with defined edging, and let it do what it does. Just don't mix it with plants you love. This is the one I've been building toward, and I suspect it's the one that's going to surprise the most people on this list. The plant, English ivy. It's one of the most planted, most photographed, most romanticized plants in garden history. Stone cottages, university buildings, old garden walls. English ivy is synonymous with a certain kind of timeless beauty. And in its correct setting, grown in containers, trained on a small structure, maintained and monitored, it is beautiful. I won't deny that. Here's what most people don't know. English ivy is invasive across most of the eastern United States, the Pacific Northwest, and parts of Europe. On the ground, it forms a dense mat that prevents native plants from growing, eliminates habitat for ground-nesting birds. And critically, it doesn't just stay on the ground. When English ivy reaches a tree, it climbs. And as it climbs, it adds enormous weight to the canopy. Ivy-covered trees are significantly more likely to fall in storms because the added weight and wind resistance overwhelms the tree's structure. It's called ivy deserts. In some forestry circles, large areas where the ivy has killed everything beneath and around it. And here's the detail that changes everything. English ivy has two growth phases. In its juvenile phase, it stays low and spreads across the ground. But once it climbs and matures, it begins to flower and produce berries. Berries that birds eat and spread into natural areas far beyond your garden. The action step. If you have English ivy on trees, remove it now. Cut the vines at the base and let the top die in place. For ground cover, remove it gradually and replace it with a native alternative like native Pachysandra, Allegheny spurge, or wild ginger. This one plant, more than almost any other, is the perfect example of why beautiful isn't always best. So there they are. 11 perennials that millions of gardeners have planted with the best of intentions, and that have caused years of unexpected work as a result. I want to leave you with the most important thing I've learned after 4 decades in the garden. A great garden isn't just about what you plant. It's about what you choose not to plant. Every aggressive spreader you don't bring home is hours of future digging you'll never have to do. Every plant you choose based on long-term behavior, instead of first-season beauty, is a decision that pays you back year after year. And here's the thing. This doesn't have to be complicated. The formula is simple. Before you plant anything, ask 2 questions. First, how does this spread? By seed, by runners, or by root? Second, what does it look like 5 years from now, not 5 months? Those 2 questions alone will protect you from the vast majority of gardening regret. The gardeners I admire most, the ones with the most beautiful, effortless spaces, aren't the ones who know the most Latin names. They're the ones who've learned to pause before they plant, to research before they buy, to think one season ahead. That's what we're building here at the Root Garden. Not just gardens that look good on day 1, but gardens that reward you for years. Less work, more beauty, more time to actually enjoy what you've grown. If this video helped you, I'd love for you to share it with a fellow gardener who might have one of these on their list. And drop a comment below. Which of these surprised you the most? I'll see you in the next one.